Julie, our Facebook page is live now.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. We are so excited for this day. Today is our fifth annual men's seminar, 60-day check-in. We are specifically doing what's going to be highlighted today is about virtual interviewing. So we're excited about that. So let me just give you just a quick background. This started, I don't have our co-partner on here with his Nafisa, but she would definitely share that, how this started specifically is around us helping folks in our community. It started with what happened in our community was an uprising in the Sherman Park District. And then a few folks got together in a room and decided how can we ensure that folks can talk about employment and helping folks get jobs. So I am so excited that we were able to do that because it's so important for us to do what we can in the community. So once again, what's important is that today we're going to talk about how we help folks get jobs for our 60-day virtual interview. And can I bring my co-partner, Sam, if you would like to join me, please. Good morning. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now, Shannon?
I can. Yes, I can.
Awesome, thank you. Well, I will go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Samantha Mitchell. I am the engagement manager for our diversity and inclusion initiatives at United Way. And before we move on, I just wanted to give a little bit of background about how this all came about. And this event supports United Way's Diversity Leadership Society, which aims to reduce barriers to employment and advancement in the region. Our overall mission is to ensure that all adults in our community have the opportunity to obtain permanent employment with a livable wage at a workplace where they are treated with dignity and have opportunities for advancement. all in all, we want men in our community to have access and resources to be prepared for interviews and to be able to think ahead about things that might be a barrier to having a successful virtual interview, which is what brings us here today. Shannon, did you have anything else you wanted to add before I share a few housekeeping tips and introduce our presenter? You're on
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No more than, folks, get your pen and paper out. Today is going to be some great information on how we help the folks in our community. And I just want to make sure that as we go through this today, there are some folks that we need to make sure that we do thank, which is our United Way partners, our Manpower partners, and our Goodwill partners. And so excited. And so, Sam, go ahead and kick it off.
Thank you. So before I bring up our presenter, please remember to keep your microphones on mute and your cameras off during the event until we get to question and Q&A. And then if you have any questions during the event, please enter them in the chat box. I have the pleasure of introducing our presenter, Jim Love, who is the lead sales support professional for Talent Solutions TAPFIN. He strategizes presentations and enables the TAPFIN sales team to win deals. Jim has been with Manpower Group since May 2018 and enjoys his work thoroughly. Additionally, Jim is a motivational and keynote speaker and specializes in the topic of authentic leadership. Jim, can you turn your camera on and join me?
I sure can.
Hi, Jim. Thank you. I will let you take it from here. Enjoy the event, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. And thank you, Shannon, as well. It's good to see, well, I don't see any of you, but it's good to be here. I just wanted to say, first of all, doing this type of work, with United Way, with Goodwill, with Manpower Group, who I work for, is an honor. And my relationship with both organizations goes back to my childhood. My parents were really passionate about both, and I've been involved with United Way for a long time, been donating to Goodwill for a long time, and I think you all being here and you being a part of this is a big deal, and the folks who put this on are awesome. So I'm really glad to have been asked, and I'm just going to share a couple things with you all today about virtual interviewing. You're going to have a chance to discuss later on as we move forward. But thank you for being here. I think taking the time out of your day to come and learn something new and to be in a virtual community with each other is a big deal. So you deserve a pat on the back for that. And we're just pumped to serve with you and to be with you and walk with you as you try and move on, to the next steps in your career. So as Sam mentioned, this is my bio here. You can see at the top left is my professional headshot. At the top right is my speaking headshot. And I'm a big fan of positive energy, and that's what that shirt says. That's what I try and put forward. And I've been speaking for about 7 years professionally, mostly to high school and college students, and now to adults, to really anybody that's open to hearing a message. And I've been with the Manpower Group family for the last 2.5 years, which flies by. But total honor to be a part of that. And you could see a quote I put in here, and I'm going to touch on this a little bit as we go on, but do you unapologetically is a quote that actually speaks to me. I try and live by that. And really what it means is to be yourself and don't apologize to anyone about it. Whether that's being authentic, showing your voice, just doing the things that are going to make you happy. And I think that will help you as you propel yourself into the next step of whatever your career, is going to turn into, and these opportunities to get jobs, to use the resources you have at United Way and at Goodwill to do those things. So I wanted to put that up there. Feel free to steal it, because I didn't make this quote up. So I stole it from someone years ago, but I hope you enjoy that. And so just super pumped again to be with all of you. And one more thing too. The notes of encouragement that started off here were just fantastic. And I think that you really should read those and know that, you're not alone in this search, and you're not alone. This year's been awful, right? And you have a network of people who are here to help you through it. This is one of many areas to do that. So just recognize that. And whether you think you're not seen, you are seen, and your voice is heard. And we're here to help. We're here to guide and to be a resource and a friend to you as you pursue hopefully the next step in whatever career awaits you. So we'll go on to the next slide and we'll start off here. And so I want to start off positive. I already told you that's kind of how I am. So I want to give you this quote here that really hits home to me. So as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. So what that means is, like, as you be yourself and do your thing and be true to who you are, you're kind of enabling other people around you to do the same thing, right? And you can do that virtually too. So you can shine. Like, that's a choice to shine. You have good things, right? You have, you're again taking time to learn and to grow. You're a loving, giving human being, and your next step is not far off. So interviews are an opportunity for you to shine. I think daily life, there's ways to do it, right? But interviews are a chance to do that. And so what I want to know, and if you could just go, and if you're in here in the chat box, just go ahead and tell us what you will do with your opportunity to shine when you get it, when you use the resources here between United Way and Goodwill. If you have a word or a phrase or something like that you want to throw out there, by all means do it. We want to know, and we'll talk about them later as well, what you'll do when you'll have an opportunity to come through and to shine. So yes, absolutely. Try to get the job, highlight accomplishments. Totally. Yes, you have accomplishments. We'll talk about those later on as well. But you're going to try and turn up. You're going to try and shine. You're going to try and be there, be present, and let them know what you're all about. Learn something new. Yes, Shannon. Oh, totally. Like that's a big part of getting a next step in a career, is to learn something new and to really be a part of something bigger that's bigger than yourself. And Julie, you just took the words right out of my mouth. Be your authentic self. That's the word on the street, and be present, right? Nafisa, absolutely. Add your skill sets. Totally, y'all are killing this game. All these things are so true. If you guys have access to this chat box, check it out, because that is fine and fantastic. And it's awesome. And again, yeah, Annette, totally relax, enjoy the conversation, be yourself. And we will talk about all this stuff in like 10 more minutes. So it's going to be great. Okay. So again, use this opportunity to shine. It's your choice to do so, and let people around you feel that, right? You have an energy, you can put it forward. So we will move into the next part here. So what's the reality here? In 2020 right now, let's just be frank, it's a rough year, and it has been in many ways for many of us. And but what has changed is that virtual interviewing is here to stay, and beyond too. So in a moment, we're going to have a poll question. And this poll question, and I have an answer to this. So I want to know, what percentage do you think virtual interviewing has increased? So according to HR leaders, how much has virtual interviewing increased in 2020? So go ahead and throw your answer in, hit submit, and I'm going to participate too, even though I know the answer. So I'm cheating a little bit, but that's okay, because it's my presentation and I'll do what I want. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so go ahead and hit submit, and we're going to see the results will come up, and I think this will surprise you quite a bit in how much the world has changed, particularly in interviewing. So, okay, great responses, and okay, looks like a lot of you think a little bit over half. A couple of you are like in the 63 range. If you guessed 86, you would be correct. So 86%. And we can go into the next bullet point here. There was a poll within Gartner, and Gartner is sort of this like leading, credible, reliable market research company. 334 HR leaders in April said that they had an 86% increase in organizations incorporating new virtual technology to interview candidates. That's a lot. 86 is a ton. So that's happening. This is all happening now. So, and we'll go on the next thing here. So a lot of experts predict that this isn't going to leave, like regardless of when social distancing is lifted, or masks are lifted and the pandemic's over, if you will, that's going to stick around. To be frank, it's cheaper. It's cheaper for companies to do that, and it's easier. They can do a lot more, in one day. So this, now we talk about like getting better, right? Like during COVID, maybe you've picked up a habit, or maybe you've got, picked up a new skill, or maybe you're normal in habits, just like me. But this is a chance to get better at something new that you're not used to, and to set yourself apart, right? Because I think a lot of times we're like, well, what am I good at? Like, this could be the thing that you're good at. And don't let that challenge escape you. So it's time to get better. The time is now to start getting better. But honestly, I just wanted to put this in perspective. Like, this is a very real thing that's happening, and it's a good thing. Like, this is a chance for you to go and to make it happen. So recognize that 86% is a lot, and organizations are going to make it stay, and experts believe it ain't going anywhere. So let's get used to it. So let's go into the next slide here, and we'll talk about your preparation. So going into an interview, right? What I would recommend, test and retest your equipment, right? So these platforms like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Hangouts, et cetera, they give you the ability to go in beforehand and test out your webcam and test out your mic, right? And what that does is, of course, it gives you confidence to relax and know that like that's now beyond your control. You've tested it out, you've done it, and now let's think about what you're going to do. So install the technology, right? If you don't have it, install it, and use it with a friend, right? Maybe have like a mock interview where you ask questions. And one shout out I want to give to that too is Goodwill and United Way both have many opportunities for you all to take advantage of things like a mock interview, right? So use the resources that you have at your disposal through these two amazing organizations that can help you get from where you are to where you should be, and let that, so put the technology actually in your device, and then kind of use it, moving forward. And so really, once you've done that, like once you've thought, you've tested things, you got the technology, maybe you've done a mock interview, start to think about your experiences you've had with work and how they're going to relate to this position you're going for, right? So what do you have? What do you bring to the table that other people don't, right? And there's plenty of things, but start to brainstorm that. Start to turn up on what you're good at, and have those in mind so that when you're asked that, because you will be, you're able to talk through it. So that's, a little bit about preparation. Obviously with equipment, but also a mindset, within yourself, and start really thinking positively about that. So we'll go into the next slide here. And so talking about the interview setting, right? So whether you're in your home, apartment, a community center, wherever it is that you're at to do your interview. So pick a spot within that place where you're comfortable. And I don't mean like laying down comfortable. Don't do it from bed. I mean like right now I'm standing in a living room, and this is where I'm comfortable doing it. So if yours is on a couch, if yours is on just on one of your favorite chairs, wherever that might be, but make sure it's well lit. You have enough light, not too much and not too little. The internet connection is good. That's a big part, right? And sometimes you can't control that part, of course, but pick the spot where it's where it's maybe the best. And then finally, minimal noise. Like I know we have realities, like we maybe have kids or pets that are crying in the background or barking in the background, but just try and pick a time or a place, or control the setting where you just won't have as much, right? And that will help you feel more comfortable so you're not worried about it. For number 2, we're going to go into this even more detail in the next slide, but put your camera at your face at eye level. So you can see, I'm looking right at you in the webcam as I point into the webcam. No one needs to see up your nose. We don't want to see what's going on up in there. So make sure the camera's pointing right at your webcam, and then do a test run, right? Test run the heck out of it and rinse and repeat until your optimal view is obtained. So just make sure you got to move it around a little bit, right? Do a little bit of that, but make sure you're comfortable with it. And if you're confident and comfortable with it, they're going to see the same thing. So let's move into the next slide. So are you ready for your close-up? So you can see here, these poor camera angles, which are on the left, are a distraction and don't look that good, can make you appear less professional. So the first guy, you can kind of see up the nose. The second one's way dark. And the third one is sort of cut off at the nose here. And so the proper setup of that camera and all these angles really ensures that you're able to connect at a moment's notice and avoid some of those mishaps. So you could see the better picture. She looks so confident, got a great smile, and ready to rock this interview. So that's like an easy thing for you all to do. And you can find that, that moment, set up your webcam, whatever it is, to make sure you look good and you feel good, because then you will be good. If A equals B, then B equals C. And so make that happen. So that's just a little bit, you could just see, I know I've seen many of these examples of people that don't know how to do this. So just make sure that's set up, because it makes a big difference and your background looks great. All right, we can go on the next slide here. Professional etiquette. So I know that this is virtual, and I know, it's different, and, reading nonverbals and things are kind of difficult, but treat it as if you're in person, right? Dress professional. Like, here you go, right? Put on something that's gonna let you shine, and make it as if, this is in, sort of an in-person interview and a really important time for you. Big thing here, show up. I should have put on time, show up on time, and be positive, right? Throw some gratitude in your attitude, right? Be excited to be there, nod your head, smile, laugh. Basically what I'm saying is emote along with the interviewer. It should be a dialogue, right? Of course they'll ask you questions, but if you end it and you're like, you didn't really answer anything. So just have a conversation, be yourself, and relax, sit straight, right? Good posture, no nail biting. It always kind of shows people are nervous, and look them in the eye again, which is at the webcam. And perhaps really most importantly for this part is put your phone down, turn it over, put it on silent. We all have the silent button, throw it on silent. And then, again, your computer notifications, you can turn those off or make them silent, whatever you need to do. But the less distraction you have around you, the better. So you can really focus all your time and energy on the task at hand, which is this amazing interview that you've giving the availability to go on to. So it's a really good opportunity for you to show up and really have this professional etiquette. So a lot of people forget this. Like it's easy to wake up and like you've been wearing pajamas all day to forget to do something like that, but it's important. And again, be on time. I would show up a couple minutes early, like especially if it's on Zoom. Usually you're allowed to log in and wait till they started. So I'd rather have it load on my computer, wait a little while, and then whoever the interviewer is can start to show up and you're already there. So just a couple things about a little etiquette for you. We'll go on to the next slide here. So the interview time, it's come. Congratulations, you've made it. So be prepared. Do your research, right? Why do you want to work at this place? What is it about it? Is it the culture? Did you look up financials? Did you look up, did you go on LinkedIn and ask people what they thought about it? What, do that, do whatever subjective research you feel is important for you. And that's an easy way to prepare, really know about the company. If you know more about the company, it's an easy way to show that you want to be there. We never get the opportunity to brag about ourselves, and which could be good sometimes, but this is a chance to brag about who you are. Be open about what you've done, some of your successes. Also be open about your areas of improvement. I don't like the word weaknesses. I think that kind of is like, it's a little bit negative. So I just like to talk about where can I grow? Because we're all humans, we all have areas to grow. So I would talk about areas of improvement, right? Like this is something I have enough emotional intelligence to know I'm not as good at this part, but here's how I can improve it, or here's how I did improve it. Something like that will really help you to reformulate that story to be just a little bit different. Number 3 is have your resume ready, right? It's kind of a fact check for yourself to make sure that you're on board, you're saying all the right things, and they have it as well in front of them. So it's a good thing to have. And then finally, have a pen and paper prepared. If they're going to be asking you things, they're going to be giving you follow-up questions. If you want to write down like little things you're learning throughout it, just write those down, right? Have that prepared, and you can revert back to it because you always think you're going to remember something, and then you don't, right? Then it disappears. So I would just have that ready and have that going. And then number 4, this is a really important part to me personally. So I think, every day there's 3 things we can control, in my opinion, right? And this really goes for an interview. The first thing you can control is your attitude. The second thing you can control is your effort. And the third thing you can control is your energy, right? So your attitude, your effort, and your energy. And if you give 100% in all 3 of those places for this interview, I think you're going to show well, right? So have a positive attitude, walk in, don't walk into your computer. You're probably not going to be able to walk into the place, but be excited, be energetic, right? I think we need to collectively turn up on our energy so you can really control that. And then the max effort, right? Give this the effort that it needs and it deserves, do the research. But I think particularly, during a pandemic, especially, we can control those 3 things every day, but let those 3 things, if you can really take those into account, and put a lot of energy, for lack of better terms, into those 3 areas, I think it's going to work out well. And finally, perhaps the most importantly is be you, right? When I said do you unapologetically before this, be yourself, breathe, right? Take a breath, let it out, and just enjoy the moment, be comfortable. I know you saw a couple of folks when they said how they're going to shine. Just chill and be you, right? This is what got you here, and show the interviewer who you are and what you're all about. And that's what's going to set you apart from the rest of the people. The more authentic you are, the more relatable you are. And in my opinion, the more hireable you are. So that's really just a couple things about the interview that I think will help, other than of course answering the questions as they come. But those are the areas that you can work on, at that moment. And I think they'll make a big difference. So we'll go on to the next slide here, ending the interview. So when it's done, have questions prepared, right? If you don't have any questions, that means to me you're not that interested. So have a couple questions, which I know later on we're going to go through some examples of questions that you can ask that are helpful. But write those down. Right? I mentioned the pen and paper. Start writing those down. And okay, I have a question about that. You mentioned this. I have a question about that. If you can start linking different things the interviewer said to your questions later, it's like, I remember you saying something about this. That really knows, the interviewer knows you're paying attention and you're really interested. Thank them for their time. A lot of times we forget to do that. It's like, okay, it's over. Have a good one. Thank you for the time here. Really reiterate that you're interested. And then ask about a timetable. right? Ask them, when am I going to hear back? Or, or what can I do? Or, just kind of really make sure that you're on the same page for them moving forward. And then we'll get into the next part here. So the follow-up, this is really important. I think a lot of people miss out on this part. So handwritten thank you notes, I think are a lost art now. Whenever applicable, if you know the person's name and where they work, you can typically figure out where to send. But a very quick, write a card, dear Mrs. Smith, thank you so much for your time. Really can't wait to hear back about this job. Have a great day. It's as easy as that. And that goes a long way, to really know that you're still on the radar, that you care about this position. And then sometimes they'll give you things to follow up on if there's paperwork, et cetera, et cetera. Follow up right away, get those things done. And don't let those be the reason why somebody doesn't go through the way it should be. And lastly, you keep grinding, right? Like you got an interview, that's fantastic, but don't stop. Right. And I think when it rains, it pours. Sometimes you'll get a lot. Sometimes you might not make one, and your time will come. Right. So keep on going and don't stop. And the time to take action is now. So keep that grind up and keep it going. And I believe that's it. We go on the next slide here. Awesome. So I'm going to hand it over to the folks at Goodwill, and they will lead a group discussion based off of this and some of the other great information they have. And I thank you so much for your time. And again, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to hearing some of the group discussion matters as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Tim. I think a few of us are going to talk a little bit now about some questions. Let me just introduce myself briefly. So my name is Annette DeZino. I'm with the Goodwill Workforce Connection Centers. We have 3 locations in the Milwaukee area, and we are a free resource for job seekers. Apologize for my phone ringing, which is not something I was anticipating. So just like Jim said, that never happens. I just want you to know that never happens. That will go away in a moment. So we're going to talk about some questions for you to have for the employer, and the questions typically that they might ask you. And joining me will be Mark Lemkel, also from our Goodwill Workforce Connection Centers.
Hello.
So Mark, do we want to talk about some of the typical questions that an employer might ask? And Leah, I think you could join us in that conversation as well.
Yes. Sure. And I think one of the things to remember that even though that this is a virtual interview, it's still primarily a job interview. And so you need to prepare yourself, with the questions and learn about the company. I think one of the most typical questions is the ones they start off with is, tell me about yourself. And some people have trouble with that, and it's really not that difficult of a question once you kind of understand what they're asking for. So would you agree with that, Annette? Would you?
Yes, and I would say that that question is not to be a litany of your life. It is to always, excuse me, I'm going to pause for a moment here.
So I can step in and just say, yeah, keep it about your professional work history. Don't get personal about it. Keep it about what your accomplishments are. One of the ways to think about that question is, why are you there? They're asking you, why are you interested in this job? And tell me about yourself. You can say, well, I was recently working at this job, and now I'm interested in this job because, and you give them all the reasons why you're qualified for that job. So keep it professional and don't go personal with that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's important to think of things you can say about yourself that are still professional and are going to highlight the skills you have for that specific job itself.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And the other questions it really depends on the job. And so there's different types of questions. There's what they call behavioral questions. And those are ones where they say, give me an example or tell me about a time that you did this. And so you want to tell a little story about what you did, you know, what happened and how you resolved that situation. And so the behavioral questions are going to vary from job to job. And the one way to prepare yourself, I think, is to really study the job description, right? Highlight those things that they're looking for and come up with examples of what you've done that are related to those skills that they're asking for. Provide examples. And that way you can work them into pretty much any answer or any question that they may ask you. So that's a really good way to prepare.
Now that my phone has stopped ringing, which I just want everyone to enjoy that, because these things happen from time to time and we get through it. And what Mark was just referring to in terms of being able to answer that question, there's this method called STAR. And so I'm going to tell you what that acronym stands for, STAR. So the first is the situation. So when they ask you that question, tell me about a time that you didn't get along with an employee. Tell me about a time you had a challenge with your manager. Tell me about a time you experienced stress. How did you handle it? So what they're asking for is, tell me about that. And it's typical for a job seeker, if you haven't thought about it in advance and sort of prepared and practiced, to just kind of go a little wild and not know where to go with it. So if you can just think about that acronym, STAR, S-T-A-R. So S is the situation. So what happened? What are you dealing with? So describe a little bit of that particular time. The task, the T, what was something that you felt you could do to help resolve this? And what action did you take? And then I think, and Leah, tell me if you would agree, the most important part to that story is the R, is the result. And oftentimes you can think of a problem, you can think of what you did, you can think of how you kind of fixed it, but you forget to mention the actual result, which of course is the most important part. Would you agree, Leah, with that?
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think this question can be asked for almost any job, and it's important to know, you know, how you handle situations and what the results are, because every single company has clients or, you know, people that they're servicing. So to know, you know, that you can show results when you're handling a situation can be universal for any position.
You know, another thing I want to mention, and Jim touched on so many good points about the interview, and Mark was talking about the preparation. So those are you knowing about anticipating the questions that will be asked and knowing as much as you can about the company. Maybe we can see in the chat what ways would you go about researching a company? So let's just see what people put in the chat. Glassdoor, LinkedIn, yes, yes. Website, absolutely. Google, absolutely. Others, you know, I think another way that sometimes people might Zoom info could is just even maybe, and I used kind of Goodwill as an example. So if maybe you were looking to work at a Goodwill store. Now you'd have to respect people's time, but if you're in there shopping, you might for a moment just say, I'm curious about your job here. And if that person has, again, a moment, you need to respect their time, they might be able to just give you just a quick little insight. Now you can't do that in all situations since a lot of us are working remotely, but sometimes that opportunity presents itself. Any other ways, Mark or Leah?
Well, I think the company website is a really good place to start, and that has a ton of information, and they put a lot of time and effort creating those sites, and so they might have something about the company history or the company mission, and those are really important things to kind of look at and learn about, and you can incorporate some of those ideas into your answers if it's appropriate. And so Goodwill really functions on its mission statement. And so their whole mission is really important. For example, I think if you were going to answer some of the questions that you were might be asked, and it would be really good to know that. Other places you can Google, there's the Milwaukee Business Journal and Biz Times are really good places. They're available online now. You can Google a company, you can find out up-to-date information about them. I was working with somebody on a job interview and we Googled the company and we discovered that they had filed for bankruptcy. So you get some good information. And that's a question to ask. You know, one of the questions when we get to that, right, when we talk about questions to ask is, you know, why is this opening? What is the company's status and those kinds of things, but don't want to jump ahead too much.
I tend to be an over-preparer. Some people would consider that to be a liability versus an asset, but I would rather have more information than less. So I feel like the more information you have, you don't need to use it all, but you'll be prepared. And you may then in the conversation with the recruiter, just mention that one thing that the other candidates didn't. And again, as Jim talked about in his presentation, it's all about what sets you apart. So you want to make that distinction.
Yep.
Leah, what would be 2 questions that you feel are pretty typical that get asked most of the time?
I think what Mark was saying about when people are researching the culture and the mission statement, I think it's common for people to say, especially for us being with Goodwill, to say, you know, what's your favorite part about the culture or the mission of the company that you work for? You know, a lot of times too, I feel like it's common for people to ask kind of relating to that, but, you know, what keeps you working within the same company for such a long time? And then again, that goes back into play about the culture conversation, because a lot of times that's kind of what keeps people around too.
The other thing too, Annette, if I can jump in, is
Absolutely.
you mentioned your resume, right? To have your resume, and you assume, you know, they've looked at your resume.
Right.
Remember to know what's on your resume. Others place are going to ask questions about your experience doing such and such. And if it was a while ago, as in my case, it could be, you know, ancient history. It's good to brush up on that because they can answer or ask anything from your resume. So you want to make sure that if you say you're bilingual, be ready to show that you are bilingual, right? Those kinds of things.
That's a good point, Mark, because I think sometimes people might even have someone help them a little bit with their resume, and then they haven't looked at it for a while. And then they just go into the interview and the interviewer will say, wow, I noticed this. And that almost then it startles the candidate. You don't want that to happen. No deer in the headlights during an interview. Probably not a good thing.
Especially from your resume, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like the main thing to remember with virtual interviews is that, you know, it's easy for people if they're doing it on their phone or computer to feel like it's more of a casual setting, but it's still just as professional as doing it in person. So being prepared is still really important. So I think, you know, write down a few questions that you think you should ask at the end of the interview. You know, taking notes, I think, is a good idea. And then reading those over to make sure you're prepared to answer those general questions. So just keeping in mind that, you know, it's not a more casual setting, it's still professional, and being prepared is going to be just as important.
Yeah, those are all
I'm sorry, I was going to say that, thanks, Leah, because that there's a few, I was doing a little bit more preparation for this and a different presentation last week, and it was geared towards a younger audience, but I thought, you know, these things really still apply to adults. And, you know, maybe the younger, the 16-year-old and up hadn't really thought about this before, and any of us over 16 should probably know these things. So I'm just going to touch on a few things that I observed as I was researching this topic, which is in terms of, because An interview, excuse me, an interview is a meeting, and you still, like Leah said, want to be presentable. My favorite trick so far has been this. These are like pointy little sticky notes, and I have them right now at my camera because the tendency is easy to look down at the slide and read it, which we will do from time to time. But it was really hard to just keep focused on that little green light like you're at the eye doctor, except you're not doing anything but staring. So these help me a lot. And just some other kind of common courtesies. No eating or snacking during an interview. Water would be acceptable. That would be the same as if you were sitting down with someone. None of this, you know. I mean, I know we're on camera, and so sometimes we can see a little curl that we didn't anticipate, but leave it alone. No multitasking, like eyes on the prize. No, right? Annoying. If somebody, like, I don't think you're paying attention to me if you're doing an email at the same time. Just some fashion tips, which again, we're sort of geared towards a younger audience, but could apply to any of us, especially in an interview. No ball cap. Save that for the Brewers game. Don't wear green, which just because that can be manipulated and you never know, someone could have fun with you and try to import expressions onto your green shirt. I hope no one's wearing a turtleneck. I can't see, but no turtlenecks. And guys, probably, well, during the winter, you could wear a turtleneck, but you could end up maybe looking like a floating head. And that would probably be a little distracting. And of course, dressed, as we say, from head to toe. That means waist down in case someone comes in and knocks the camera. You don't want to have an embarrassing situation. So just a few more little tips about presentation on the screen.
I think just to, you were saying about being fully dressed is also a good way of mentally preparing for the interview.
Yes.
You know, to get your mind that this is a formal situation and that you're dressing to impress the people. So do the whole thing, you know, top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Do we have any questions in the chat?
See, see.
I don't think so.
So anybody got any questions?
How should you greet someone virtually? That's good, Nafisa. How would you answer that, Mark or Leah?
Well, I think just from the practice that I've had doing these Zoom calls and things, it's just you'd want to say hello and introduce yourself just as normally as you can, like we have done. But, you know, make sure that your video is on and you're unmuted. But mistakes happen, and they'll let you know. There's an understanding that this is kind of, you know, new technology, or you may forget to hit the mute button. But try to remember to, and I think practicing is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know, making sure that you're speaking clearly to say good morning, good afternoon, you know, thank you for your time in advance. I'm blah, blah, blah. It's nice to meet you.
I saw a question come in about salary. Do you want to answer that, Leah?
How do you recommend addressing the salary question? Julie, what do you mean by that?
Well, my understanding would be that, if I can jump in, do you mind?
Yeah.
Then, the rule of thumb in, you know, most people would say, don't talk about your salary unless it's brought up, right? So be prepared to talk about it, but you don't go in and say, you know, I need $40,000 or $20 an hour or something, right? That can turn people off. You want to be prepared to talk about salary if they ask for it. So you should research and know what the position pays and what you want out of it. But the idea is that you don't ask unless they ask.
And I think for most people, if you use a range, helps so you don't get locked in one way or the other. So whether that's an hourly rate or an annual rate, just be realistic and be in the ballpark.
Mhm.
I saw another question that just popped up here. Oh, in what ways should I build rapport? Oops, where'd I go with the, I lost myself.
How to
Who
build
wants to take that?
rapport. I feel like it's important to, do the same follow-up as you would on an in-person interview. So you can build rapport by, within, probably 4 or 5 hours, or by the end of the day, sending them a thank you email and just saying, I look forward to hearing from you. If you're not hearing back, you can check in a couple of days and just say, hey, I'm still very interested in the position. Just wanted to check in and see if you might have any updates. If you keep reaching out to them and checking in, I think you can build a relationship there. And, if they're with a staffing agency and maybe that position doesn't work out, at least you're kind of keeping yourself fresh in their mind. So if they do get something else that you could be a fit for, then they have you as an option for a candidate still as well.
Anything, Mark, you want to add to that?
I think what Jim had said is good is to try and be yourself, be comfortable. The more research you've done, the more you are prepared, the more confident you're going to be, and the more you're going to come across. And I think that helps build rapport. You give the impression that you're going to fit in with them, fit in with the company, and fit into the job.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you really do have to think about it as a conversation. I know most people don't really like to interview. I'm an odd person because I like to do it. Done plenty of it and love to practice it. And I think, just like Mark said, the more you practice, then you're comfortable with it and it's not a tense situation. So, and sometimes maybe at the beginning of the interview, you'd have a few moments to have a little bit of an icebreaker. Maybe pretty much we all love the Packers, so you almost can't go wrong with that. And, there just might be some of the weather. We always talk about the weather here. So just something light, but just like Mark said, just being yourself is the best. I know we're getting a little closer to tying up. So I just want to mention a couple things about Goodwill, because we have two of our departments represented here. We have Mark and I are in the Goodwill Workforce Connection Center, and Leah is in Goodwill Talent Bridge. So just to distinguish, because I know it is, and then there's Goodwill Stores. So Talent Bridge is also part of Goodwill, and they are a staffing agency, and they fill positions and they work with numerous employers, and Leah is a recruiter with them. Mark and I are in the Workforce Connection Centers, which are the free resource centers for job seekers. So we are open. We have 3 locations, one at 91st and Silver Spring, another on East Capitol Drive and Richard Street, and then a third on the south side in Bayview. And we're open Monday through Thursday, 9 to 5. And on Friday, we're working remotely. So a great time to practice interview, mock interview, those kind of things, phone call, whatever the case might be. So again, we're there for you as a resource. We don't get you a job, but we do a lot to fill in all those pieces, because there's just a lot of components into finding that job, keeping that job. And that's our goal, is to help you with as much information as we can. And now, Shannon, I'm going to switch it back to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Annette. Such great information that was shared. There was a last question that popped up as well. And Samuel will make sure that information, the question that you asked, will be answered. And just so you know, the question was around salary. How and when would one negotiate salary if you deem your expertise and experience more valuable? And I think that's a question we definitely want to answer. So Annette, Mark, Leah, we'll make sure that question gets answered in the process. Sam, can you also join me as well? And so, just knowing that the information that was shared today is so exactly what our community needs, and we're so excited about how we can basically get you all the information that we can. And so once again, the things that were shared from Jim, the things that were shared by Goodwill, these are all things that you'll be able to have access to and information to. Go right ahead, Sam.
Thanks, Shannon. And again, thank you, Jim and the Goodwill team for sharing such useful and important information today as it pertains to your virtual interviews. Just gonna drop a couple reminders and then I'll pass it back to you, Shannon. We have an awesome website full of employment resources around building your resume, interviewing, financial management, wellness, and a ton of community resources, which can be found on United Way's website that is listed up on the screen. I'll also go ahead and drop that link in the chat for you all right now. Annette shared the details about our next slide, the Goodwill Workforce Connection Centers and the Talent Bridge locations. Please take advantage of all of these awesome resources as you journey through building your resume and interviewing and really preparing for that next step in your career. And then we have a couple more that I'll let Shannon get into.
Sam, don't go off. I want you to stay on for just a second, because I think what's important is maybe we didn't highlight the information, but can you just give a quick elevator version of how this is connected to reducing barriers to employment and advancement?
Yes, I think I mentioned this at the beginning, is that the Diversity Leadership Society at United Way has an initiative reducing barriers to employment and advancement, and really connecting people to employment that has a livable wage at a workplace that's a permanent position at a workplace where they have opportunities for advancement. And all of these workshops, the men's job seminar, all of that feeds into the work that we're doing around reducing barriers to employment. And we have awesome partners such as Manpower Group, who is the sponsor for our barriers to employment work. Thank you to Manpower Group. And then now our work in collaboration with Goodwill, which is getting really bringing all of this together. Did I hit it?
Yeah, you hit it. I know you said it. I just wanted to make sure that, the folks that are listening in and they could be anywhere. And we want to make sure that folks understand why the collaboration and connection is important. And so, our next thing, we want folks to know our next and last for the year 2020 has been a year of certain things that just happened out of nowhere, right? And so we are wanting to make sure this is, once again, our 90-day check-in, which will be specifically around success on the job. That is going to be December 9th, 2020 from 12 to 1. So please save the date. And if you know of anyone that needs the resources, please, please, please share this information. Next slide. And so I want to, once again, we're thinking about how do we help our community from a totality situation, right? So we have financial empowerment sessions. We actually have one that is taking place tomorrow, November 18th from 6:30 to 7:15. That information is shared on the slide here. We're also going to put that information once again in our virtual library where you'll be able to access it. Also, there'll be another financial empowerment seminar that will take place December 2nd, once again from 6:30 to 7:15. And information for questions, you can check out this information here and it'll get you to that specific event. So once again, there's been a lot of information shared. It's so important. There's a few things that I want to say. I want to say thank you to our partners. We can't do this work without the power of collaboration with our folks, Manpower and Goodwill, but also to our partners, past and present. There are a lot of folks that we are connected with, that we do our work with, that are connected in our virtual library where all the resources are. And we just want to make sure that everyone in our community has access and are able to get whatever their needs are and their needs met. And so the only thing I want to highlight again is that this information is specifically for everyone in our community. Please pass this information on. Please share it with folks that you know, so that we can make sure that we can get this information out to everyone. 2020 has been one heck of a year, and we're still not done. We still got a little bit in this fourth quarter here, and we want to end it with a bang. So are there any other questions from folks? And I want to make sure we get there. I'm just checking the chat here just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, I think it has been a great day, Sam.
It has. This was awesome.
Yeah, and I'm seeing something in the chat about a last question. What was the question?
Sam's last question about salary.
Oh, Sam, okay, yeah. So Mark, you wanna, please.
So his question was asking, basically, at what point do you negotiate salary, and what,
Yeah.
what if you feel like you're worth more than they're offering? And it's good to be prepared. Look, there's a lot of sites, and we can share resources with you that have a lot of information on salaries. The salary should really be paid on what the job is based on and your experience.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so when you get into the negotiation phase, that could happen in the interview. You could be prepared for it, but let them start the negotiation. And then, you can counter the offer, but you can leave it open-ended, because the interview is a little awkward sometimes. Usually the salary negotiation will come later,
Mm-hmm.
in an offer of some sort. But you can give them the range, and you can also say that you would think about it, but you need to understand what the full benefit package would be, right? Because great benefits could affect your expectation of salary. So there's different ways to approach it, but I think be prepared and know what your minimum is going to be, and start there. You don't want to give them, lowball them if you can avoid it.
Yeah, Mark, I think that's such a great way of thinking about how salary can be, how you can flex what salary it is, because sometimes you think about your benefits could really make up what your salary could be.
I hope that
And I'll
helps.
just add to that, I would agree with Mark that I think sometimes a package of other things are what some employers would feel is appropriate if they had to make an adjustment if the salary doesn't meet your expectations. And that oftentimes comes into PTO time, which I think for many job seekers, sometimes that ends up being, and now of course it might be how much flexibility is there in working from home.
Yeah.
So there's other options to address today than there were probably a year ago. And I think those conversations come, like Mark said, a little bit after the fact.
So great, thank you. And I think once again, that is more information that we can ensure that will be a part of our virtual library. And I think there was a question around, even when Jim spoke about ensuring that you send a follow-up message, like that's information that we've included in our virtual library, so that we can help folks not have to think about what they need to say so much. Not that you need that, but I think it's always good to have a starter, something to say when you want to send something back to folks. So, once again, this has been a great session. We're going to give you back a few minutes more of your time today. This virtual preparation has been so great. Hopefully you've gotten the information that you needed. Once again, check out our information in our virtual library at United Way, gmwc.org/employment resources. You'll be able to get all of the information there. Once again, thank you to our partners, Goodwill, Manpower. Thank you all for being here. Have a great and wonderful day, and let's end 2020 with a bang.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Guys, thanks so much.